There is a version of you that everybody likes. It knows when to soften its voice, when to smile, when not to say the thing you have already seen. It knows how much of your intensity the room can tolerate, how much truth the conversation can hold, how much of yourself is safe to reveal. You became so good at being this person that nobody thought to ask whether it was costing you anything. But you know it in the exhaustion that arrives after an ordinary day with other people, in the relief of finally closing the door behind you, in those moments when someone tells you how easy you are to talk to, and some strange part of you wonders whether they have actually been talking to you, because somewhere along the way adaptation became performance, and performance became automatic, until the question was no longer, why do people exhaust me? It became something far more unsettling. Who am I when there is nobody here to adapt to? Today I want to talk about the neurodivergent Sigma INFJ, who learn to survive by becoming readable to everyone except themselves, the shapeshifter, not the liar, the translator, worn down by a lifetime of translation. You know the shape of it even if you have never called it by name. You walk into a room and within seconds you have adjusted. Your voice softens or sharpens to match. Your face arranges itself into the expression the moment requires. You track what the other person needs, and you quietly become the version of yourself most likely to keep the room easy. None of this is planned. It happens faster than thought, and the world has a flattering explanation ready for it. You are adaptable, you are considerate, you are good with people, emotionally intelligent, socially skilled. Your colleagues call you easy to work with, your friends call you a good listener. I want to be fair to that explanation because it is not a lie. You are considerate. The skill is real. The care underneath it is real. If being told you are good with people has ever felt like praise you earned, you did earn it, but you already know the explanation is missing something, because being considerate should not cost you what this costs. You have watched other people move through the same social day and walk away untouched, ready for more. You come home and cannot speak. You lie in the dark and feel the strange depletion of a battery you did not know you were draining. Good social skills do not do that. Something else is happening, and you have felt it your whole life without permission to name it. You have probably spent years believing you were simply an introvert who needed to recharge, that the tiredness was the ordinary price of being a quiet person in a loud world. That explanation, too, reaches something true, but it does not reach far enough, because what exhausts you is not the noise, it is the performance, it is the second self you have been running continuously for as long as you can remember. Look closely at what that performance actually involves. You are not simply being polite. You are running a live translation between the person you are inside and the person the room can accept. You are monitoring your face so it does not show too much. You are softening opinions so they do not land too hard. You are converting thoughts that arrive in dense, strange, interconnected forms into small, smooth, digestible pieces. You watch the other person for the first sign that you have been too much and correct it before they can name it. All of this at once beneath the surface of an ordinary conversation. You will recognize this because you have done it since childhood. Somewhere early you learned that the unedited version of you was received badly, too intense, too serious, too quick to see things others had not seen. So you built the edited version, the one that keeps the room comfortable, and you have been maintaining it ever since. The world praised the edited version. It never met the other one. That is the arrangement. And it is far more costly than the word considerate can hold. So let us look at it properly, not the comfortable version, the real one. Start with the exhaustion, because it is the clue everyone misreads. If this were simply courtesy, it would cost what courtesy costs, very little. Holding a door, softening a tone, choosing a kind word. These are small acts and they do not empty a person. But you are emptied. You are emptied in a way that can take a full day of solitude to reverse. Exhaustion at that scale is not the price of manners. It is the price of performance sustained for hours without a break. The body does not lie about energy, and your body has been telling you for years that you are doing something far larger than being nice. Then notice when it happens. If masking were only social politeness, it would switch off when the social situation ended. But watch yourself alone. You rehearse conversations that already happened, editing what you said. You catch yourself performing ease in front of people who have known you for decades. You monitor your own face when no one is watching it. Some part of the performance has become so constant that it runs even in the empty room. That is not a skill you deploy. It is a second self you cannot fully put down. And a skill you cannot stop using is not a skill. It is a cage you have learned to call a personality. Here is the move that matters most. Everyone adapts, this is true, and it is the objection people will raise. The confident colleague dresses their tone up for the boss and down for the team. But that is a surface adjustment. A dial turned, a register changed. What you are doing is not that. You are translating an entire cognitive architecture into a language it was never built to speak. You think in patterns, in dense webs, in whole gestalts that arrive before the words, and you must convert all of it, live, into the small linear pieces the room can receive. The confident colleague is changing their accent. You are simulating a different kind of mind. Those are not the same act, and calling them both adaptation is how the real cost stays hidden. You have probably felt, reading this, a specific kind of grief arriving, the recognition that the tiredness was never weakness, and then the further recognition of how long you have been paying for it. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because the naming only helps if you let it land. The exhaustion was real. It was never the flaw. The flaw was in a world that would only receive the translated version, and never once asked to meet the mind doing the translating. And here is what that cost finally is. The performed self is the one the world met, praised, hired, and befriended. So the performed self grew stronger, fed by every reward. The real self, the unedited one, met no one, and so it went quiet. You may have reached a point where you genuinely do not know which one you are. You can read everyone in the room with uncanny precision and not answer the simple question of what you actually want. The instrument that reads others so well has lost the signal of the self. That is not a personality quirk. It is what happens when a mind spends its whole life translating outward and is never once received as it is. That is the thread. It leads to a name, and the name is older than any clinic, because the mind doing all this translating is not new. It has been recognized before, in every century that had a word for the one who must wear many faces to survive. What you have been calling adaptability is the shapeshifter, not the deceiver of the stories, the older figure beneath it, the one who wears many faces, not to trick anyone, but because moving between worlds demands constant translation, and the translation never ends. And naming it does not close the matter, it opens the real one. Because if this is a shapeshifter's burden, not a personal failing, then the exhaustion you blamed yourself for was the cost of survival. And the self you perform has stood between the world and the real you for so long that the world has never met you. That is what you have paid. Not tiredness, a lifetime of being loved in translation. This is not two faces in the dishonest sense. In Jungian terms, this is introverted intuition, an extroverted feeling working overtime. An inner world of dense pattern forced through a social channel built for other minds. Psychologists have a plainer word for it now. They call it camouflaging, and they have measured its cost in exhaustion, in anxiety, in the slow erosion of knowing who you are. The shapeshifter is not magic. It is Ni and Fi running a translation that was never meant to run without rest. There is a shadow in this, and I have watched it for a long time. The shapeshifter can wear the faces so well for so long that taking them off becomes frightening. Unmasking is not a single brave gesture. It is slow and uncertain because you have to find out who is underneath after years of not looking. Some of the people who only ever met the performance will not like the one they find. That is the true cost of unmasking, and it is why so many never attempt it. What we tend to here is not a better mask. It is permission, in a few safe places, to set the mask down and be met as you are. So the question you began with was never whether you are adaptable. You are. The question is what it has cost to be adaptable at that depth, and whether there is anywhere you are allowed to stop. You were not born to perform. You were born perceptive, and the performance was the price the world charged for the perception. Knowing that will not dissolve the mask overnight, but it changes who you understand yourself to be beneath it. That is the whole of it. If this has landed where it needed to, you may already know what comes next. There are 7 Sigma INFJ archetypes, and each one carries a different gift, a different burden, a different mythic responsibility. The link in the description will take you to a free assessment that reveals yours. It takes about 3 minutes. The answer tends to land harder than people expect. And if you want to keep walking these threads with me into the deeper psychology of the Sigma INFJ, into the archetypes the world has forgotten how to name, subscribe. There are far older and stranger things still to uncover. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.